Hi everyone, for those of you who don't know Jeff Nippard, he's a real-life Hobbit, and in fact you might recognize him as Fili from the Hobbit films, but unfortunately that trilogy's over now, so he's been forced to take a break from acting, and he's back to posting fitness content on his YouTube channel. And just recently, only a couple weeks ago, he posted a video about his diet, his current lean bulking plan, and it's as bad as I would have expected it to be, so we're going to go through this video, critique his dietary choices, and give an overall review of his current diet.
Okay guys, we just got back from our walk. I'm gonna get some breakfast ready. First, I wanna show you guys what my macro targets are gonna be for today. I've got 225 grams of protein, 75 grams of fat, and 300 grams of carbs. And that will give me an approximate caloric target of 2,800 calories per day.
All right, so Jeff is trying to recomposition himself. He's trying to gain muscle without gaining any body fat. So he's trying to make lean gains, and he outlined his caloric intake, his macronutrient breakdown, and I do have a few minor critiques here. For one thing, his protein intake, I would say, is a bit excessive. 225 grams of protein per day. Jeff, in his video, mentioned that he only weighs 165 pounds. So yeah, that's a really, really high protein intake for somebody who weighs that little. Again, I'd call that excessive, unnecessary. That doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be a problem for Jeff, but I generally wouldn't recommend protein intakes that high. Jeff did give his own reasoning for this. In his video, he did reference a study where people consuming really high protein intakes in this range did see favorable body composition changes compared to people eating more normal protein intakes. Now, the problem with the study that Jeff referenced is it's only one study. If you look at the broad scope of data, you generally see that 0.75 grams of protein per pound of body weight seems to be ideal for strength athletes, and going beyond that doesn't seem to really have any benefit. And one really big problem with the study that Jeff referenced was that there was a big difference in caloric intake between the two diet groups. The high protein diet group was eating a lot more calories, and, them just getting in more overall nutrition, getting more energy to fuel their workouts, train really hard, that might have been what caused these body composition changes, just eating more calories, more overall nutrition, not just eating more protein. So I don't think this is really great evidence to suggest really high protein intakes like this. But at the end of the day, I think you do have to consider the needs of the individual. If you are eating a lot of protein like this and you're making great progress, you feel great, you're doing well in the gym, then I wouldn't really make any changes. But everyone has a caloric budget, and if you increase one macronutrient, the intake of one macronutrient like protein, significantly, well, you're going to have to bring down the intake of other macronutrients to fit within your caloric budget. And if you're going to really up your protein, but then you're going to have to really reduce your carbs, you might find that has a negative impact on your energy. You might not be able to train as hard or for as long, and that will cause a negative overall change to your physique, your progress. So that's why I generally recommend avoiding protein intakes that high. There's not really any great evidence suggesting we need to intake that much protein, and everyone's on a caloric budget. I think you'd be better off eating more carbs than super high protein intake like that. But, if this is working for Jeff, then whatever. And the only other thing I'd critique here is his fat intake. I think it's a little high. He's eating 75 grams of fat per day, which would account for about 25% of his daily calories. Fat is very easily deposited into adipose tissue, so if you want to avoid fat gain while you're recompositioning, you probably want to gravitate towards a lower fat diet. So I think he should, eat closer towards 15% of total calories coming from fat and just increase his carb intake. But that's just a minor critique. So overall, I think the plan he has here is good. It's just that how he executes this plan. He eats a lot of animal products that are high in saturated fat, cholesterol, and we'll get into that now.
So for breakfast, just gonna be doing the usual here. I'm gonna do some scrambled eggs, some turkey bacon, some goat cheese on the eggs, kiwi, of course, do that every morning, and what else? Oh, and some hash browns, or, well, potato patties, technically. Oh yeah. I don't know about you, that looks like a good breakfast to me.
Okay, so again, Jeff's overall plan, his caloric intake, his macronutrient breakdown, how he plans his meals in that respect, it's totally fine. I don't have much to critique there. It's how he executes the plan with his food choices. He always goes for foods that are just junky, low in nutrition, high in saturated fat and cholesterol, and are processed. So, the hash browns, the eggs, the cheese, the turkey bacon, processed food that's high in saturated fat, cholesterol, and as many of you already know, both saturated fat and cholesterol elevate your serum cholesterol score, and elevated serum cholesterol is the principal risk factor in heart disease. Now, Jeff is a young guy. He might feel fine now, and he might be able to get away with eating like this for a long time to come, but decades down the line, this might catch up to him. Even people who think they're healthy, that exercise, that, look lean and fit, even they can develop heart disease. Plenty of athletes have gotten heart attacks. Randy Couture, an amazing athlete, he had elevated cholesterol. He recently suffered a heart attack. So why put yourself at risk? Why just choose to eat junky foods that aren't really going to benefit you? So we're going to look at Jeff Nippard's meal in Chronometer, and I'm also going to show you a healthier alternative that Jeff can make. And lucky for us, Jeff shared the calorie and macronutrient breakdown of his breakfast meal, so I was able to plug in all the numbers very accurately into Chronometer. So we came up with 490 calories in Chronometer, which is almost identical to what Jeff ate. So these numbers should be accurate, and we scroll down here and we come to our first problem. So his one meal has 9.3 grams of saturated fat. That's extremely high for just one meal. Again, saturated fat is terrible for your heart health. Both the American Heart Association and the Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition recently came out with reviews unequivocally proving that saturated fat is terrible for heart health. So why is Jeff eating these foods? Why is he promoting these foods when he knows they're just terrible for his heart? And what a lot of people don't realize is that these animal products are also high in trans fats. So these trans fats naturally occur in animal products, and according to a very recent meta-analysis, these trans fats found in animal products, they have a very similar negative effect on your cholesterol compared to industrially processed trans fats. So these trans fats are also going to raise your LDL cholesterol and lower your HDL cholesterol, which is not good for heart disease. And Jeff's meal was also extremely high in cholesterol, over 600 milligrams of cholesterol for the single meal. So again, cholesterol, it's going to raise your serum cholesterol score, it's going to increase your risk of heart disease, so it's absolutely terrible for you. And protein intake, so in Chronometer, the protein intake totaled to 34 grams. I think in Jeff's meal, it totaled to 37 grams. So very close here. I think these numbers do accurately represent what Jeff ate. And here is the micronutrient breakdown of Jeff's meal as well. So now we're going to make a vegan version of this meal that's healthier. And here we have a healthier vegan alternative to Jeff's breakfast. So instead of an egg scramble, we're going to have a tofu scramble. So 350 grams of extra firm tofu, one kiwi fruit, just like Jeff ate. We've got garlic and onion, so those are just normal vegetables you'd add to a tofu scramble. And we have half a tablespoon of avocado oil to help us cook the tofu in. This added up to 527 calories, so that's only 40 calories more than what Jeff ate. That's not going to kill him, and of course you can always adjust the caloric intake of other meals to meet your caloric targets. So we go down, and the first change we see is this meal has almost half the saturated fat as Jeff's meal, and you also have to consider that the saturated fat in this meal, it's coming from the tofu and the little bit coming from the avocado oil. The saturated fat that you find in most plant products, it's a different type of saturated fat. It's in the form of medium-chain triglycerides rather than long-chain triglycerides, so it's not going to have the negative impact on your serum cholesterol score. It's also completely free of trans fat, so that's great, and it's also completely free of cholesterol. So right away, you can obviously see this is a much more heart-healthy meal. Scroll down. We've got almost 50 grams of protein, so 48.4 grams of protein. That is over 10 grams more than what Jeff ate. So again, Jeff wants to eat a really high protein intake. Well, obviously this is a better meal choice. and if you look at the micronutrient content of this meal. Now, there are obviously differences in the micronutrient content. Some nutrients are higher in the vegan meal, some are lower. But obviously overall, you are getting more nutrition from the vegan meal. So as you can see, these very simple changes to Jeff's meal plan would only benefit him. He'd be getting less saturated fat and cholesterol. His meals would be more heart healthy. He'd be getting in more overall nutrition. And this isn't the first time I've discussed this. I think for years now, I've been trying to talk to Jeff to convince him to stop eating all these junk foods, these foods that are high in saturated fat and cholesterol. I've made video after video about this. Like a while ago, I made a Jeff Nippard Worst of the Fitness Industry video where I went over all of the BS that Jeff says about cholesterol. But it looks like things haven't changed. I think Jeff Nippard is too stubborn to admit he's been wrong about some of these things, and he just keeps promoting these terrible foods.
Also, I'll have 2 fish oil capsules and 3, well, it's actually just 1 serving of a multivitamin.
Okay, so 2 things to point out here. First of all, Jeff should not be supplementing with fish oil supplements. They don't do anything, and in fact, some recent evidence has come out showing that they could be harmful. According to the most recent systematic review, fish oil supplementation didn't have any benefit, so why take it if it doesn't have any benefit? And some recent evidence has come out showing that it could actually increase your risk of prostate cancer. So, at best, it will do nothing. At worst, it'll increase your risk of prostate cancer. So you should probably just stop taking it. Just get, your essential fats from your diet. And secondly, I want to point out, Jeff is taking a multivitamin, so technically he's actually taking more supplements than I am. I only take vitamin D, B12, and off and on I take iodine. Jeff is supplementing with a complete complex of vitamins, so... again, people talk about vegan diets being deficient. Oh my god, you're going to have to take so many supplements. Well, Jeff is taking more supplements than I am, and as I just demonstrated, a lot of these vegan meals actually contain more nutrition than the meals Jeff is eating.
All right, guys, up next, we're going to be doing our pre-workout meal. Now, I would say the pre-workout meal is the most important meal of the day, because ultimately it's going to be responsible for fueling your training, which is what's going to drive your body recomposition progress forward. So I would say for most of the other meals, the actual timing of the meals isn't so important, but for the pre-workout meal, that's one that I definitely would pay much more attention to. All right, so guys, for the pre-workout meal, I've got a chicken sandwich here. I've got some fresh chicken breast, some shredded cheese, mayo, some spinach, and a little bit of mustard on some Ancient Grains bread, which is my favorite bread. And then I've also got 100 grams of blueberries over here, and I'm gonna have a banana to go along with that.
Okay, so I would say this meal is better than breakfast. It is including more fruit, so you've got bananas, blueberries, it also has whole grains, spinach, but again, there's some more junk. There's chicken, Miracle Whip, cheese, and if you plug this into Chronometer, again, it still has an appreciable amount of saturated fat, trans fat, and cholesterol. So my recommendation would be first to just get rid of the cheese, get rid of the mayonnaise. It's just junk, garbage for you anyway, and just find a suitable replacement for the chicken, and there are plant-based chicken options. Tofurkey has plant-based chicken, Gardein has a lot of different chicken replacements. You can also be a bit healthier. You can use tofu, tempeh, textured vegetable protein to replace the chicken with as a really dense protein source. And Jeff also doesn't really eat any beans or lentils. They're really healthy foods. You can make a really simple meal out of beans and some mixed vegetables, which would have about the same amount of calories, same amount of protein as the meal you just ate. So those are some options for you, and again, much lower in saturated fat, free of cholesterol, free of trans fat.
What I've been doing is just popping back a few of these fuzzy peaches. So the main idea is you want to have a fast digesting carb source just for continued energy through the workout, and as a general rule, you want to have about a half a gram of carb per minute of training, starting around 30 minutes into your workout. So for me, 15 grams of carbs is just like 5 or 6 of these. Top back like a few of those throughout the rest of the workout, and that's really all there is to it. Sometimes I'll go for a liquid carb source, so I'll just like mix up some Kool-Aid or Tang or something like that. But for lately, I've just been going with the fuzzy peaches.
So again, Jeff's implementation on some of these principles is just really bad. So yeah, sure, it can be a benefit to you to have intra-workout carbohydrates, but like, do you have to eat so much junk throughout the day? It's all junk, processed food, garbage. So rather than having pure garbage, just pure processed sugar, just have some dates. Dates are very high in sugar, but at least you get a little bit of fiber. It's from a fruit. It's from a whole source. A little bit better for you, has more nutrition in it. So rather than pounding back fuzzy peaches or Tang, just have some dates.
So yeah, that should be 1 serving of oats. This is select protein for oats. Now, you don't need to use this kind of protein powder, but I like it because it does mix really well. And it's also a whey casein blend. I actually like blended proteins post-workout. According to one of my favorite books on nutrition of all time, The Protein Book by Lyle McDonald, combining casein and whey post-workout may have a benefit compared to consuming either one in isolation. Of course, we're talking about like the tip of the iceberg here, but I'll just kind of mix that together. So anyway, here are the total macros for that meal. We've got 34 grams of protein, 4 grams of fat, and 25 grams of carbs.
Okay, so this isn't the worst meal ever. It's just a mix of oatmeal and protein. I have very similar meals myself. The only difference is instead of getting my protein from a dairy source, I get my protein from a plant source. So I just recommend to Jeff, instead of getting your protein from whey and casein, switch over to a plant protein source like Vega. It's a blend of different plant protein sources. And according to a number of studies, there's really no difference between plant sources of protein powder and dairy sources of protein powder. So like Jeff mentioned, like he's talking about the tip of the iceberg differences here. I don't think it really matters, Jeff. I think you'd be better off switching to a plant protein source. There is some evidence that animal sources of protein, due to their amino acid composition, they elevate your IGF-1 levels a bit more than plant sources of protein, which is a risk for prostate cancer. So there's a number of reasons why you'd want to switch to a plant protein source, and it's just more ethical. Dairy cows are horribly treated in the dairy industry. Why would you want to support that? So again, a vegan option, it's probably a more healthier option, and it's definitely a more ethical option, and it's not going to make a difference to you anyway.
It needs to de-thaw a little bit, but you can see we got some chickpeas in here, we got some kidney beans, ground turkey, some peppers, garlic in there. It's just a super healthy meal. Do a little taste test. Oh yeah, I also added about 15 grams of shredded cheese on top. I think that makes it taste so much better. That's so good. So I'll put the macros for the meal up here on the screen if you guys are interested in that. Super high protein and also very high fiber meal.
Okay, so I would agree with Jeff here. This is one of his healthier meals. I love having beans. They're one of the healthiest foods for you. It also contains, tomatoes, vegetables. So it is one of his healthier meals, but it's not perfect. Again, he added cheese. I don't know why he has to add cheese to everything. And it also contains turkey. So this meal is going to contain, some appreciable amounts of saturated fat, trans fat, and cholesterol. Things you don't want. So again, a very simple fix for this is, instead of having cheese, don't have any cheese because it's terrible for you. Just don't have cheese anymore, Jeff. And you can replace the turkey with textured vegetable protein. And the textured vegetable protein, it should have more protein in it than the turkey, and just more overall nutrition. So very easy, simple fix. With most of Jeff's meals, it's a very simple, easy fix to just make it plant-based and make it healthier.
We're gonna go with cottage cheese. So cottage cheese is a very slow digesting protein, primarily from casein. Basically forms a clump in your stomach, and then it takes time for those amino acids to be digested and absorbed. So we're gonna go with some of that, and I've been eating that with some of these wheat thins over here. So get a few of these crackers, dip it in the cottage cheese. Don't knock it until you tried it, it's actually really good. Oh, and can't forget, good old kale salad with some turkey breast. Put this turkey on the salad, and I like to put a little bit of cheese on this meal too. So these are puffed potatoes. They're kind of like Rice Crisps, but obviously with the potato, I guess. But they're really low carb per serving, really high volume, so it just makes for like a really nice light snack.
Okay, so Jeff is eating some cottage cheese, normal cheese, and more turkey. So this is going to add up to a lot of saturated fat, trans fat, and cholesterol. So some easy fixes for this. Instead of having normal cottage cheese, you can make your own vegan cottage cheese out of tofu. This will actually give you the same amount of protein as normal low-fat cottage cheese, but with less saturated fat, no cholesterol, no trans fat. Also, just like Jeff, stop eating cheese. So just, again, no cheese. And turkey, you can easily replace this with plenty of different plant-based protein options. So tofu, tempeh, there's plenty of plant-based meat substitutes like tofurkey, gardein. You can have more beans and pulses, so like beans, lentils. That would probably be a benefit to you, Jeff. So again, some very simple fixes and changes. Now, obviously, Jeff's dietary choices are good enough for him to reach his athletic goals. They're good enough for him to build muscle, lose body fat, but he can obviously just choose some better options, some options that are lower in saturated fat, free of cholesterol, free of trans fat. There's no point in putting your health at risk when there are perfectly viable options that will, again, help him reach his athletic goals, build muscle, lose fat, without harming his health, and that are more ethical as well. We're not at the center of the universe. Our athletic goals aren't the most important thing. So I think we should consider, the creatures we're harming with our food choices. So again, vegan options, they're healthier, they're more ethical, and they give you the same, if not better, nutrition. So I hope you found this video interesting, hope you learned something. If you like this video, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon or through my website. I have some funding perks you may find interesting. If you're looking for clothing, then check out the Vegan Gains store. If you're looking for online coaching, then check out Quality Gains. He has customized meal and training programs. And as always, keep making those vegan gains.
What a relief! When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and how.